Now there are two choices when it comes to using Android emulators, and they of course are Android virtual devices. This is software that enables you to run your Android app on your computer. So let's discuss both options and the reasons to consider using one over the other. Firstly, the built-in AVD, Android Virtual Device. Now this one works okay and does work for many people, but it's often quite slow. And additionally, if you've got an Intel CPU on your computer, you can speed up the Android Virtual Device by using a tool, a download called Haxum. Now Haxum, there is a video showing how to install that, but firstly it won't work on your computer if you haven't got an Intel CPU, and in most cases it pretty much won't work unless you've got 8 GB of RAM or more. Now the regular AVD, the Android Virtual Device, will still work in that case. I've had people being able to use that successfully with 4 GB at a stretch of RAM, but it'll be very slow in that case without Haxum. I've seen it take 30 plus minutes to load. It's really, really slow. So ideally you want your computer to have an Intel CPU and have 8 GB of RAM or more to use the inbuilt Android Virtual Device that comes with the Android development tools. Genymotion is option 2. Now this was created by an independent company and they produced a much faster emulator. It doesn't use Haxum, but it's still faster than the Android Virtual Device with Haxum. But as is the case with the previous option, for that speed increase, you generally have to have 8 GB of RAM or more to run this. Now there's a video in this section showing how to use Eclipse and Genymotion together, and note that you need to install Genymotion and the Genymotion plugin to get it to work. There's 2 components to get that to work. So my recommendation is, if you've got 8 GB of RAM or more, you should probably use Genymotion because it's much faster and more stable in my experience. If your computer's got less than 8 GB of RAM, look at using the regular emulator, and depending on whether you've got an Intel CPU, to use the Haxum tool, but again that may not work on your computer if you've got less than 8 GB of RAM. The other thing I suggest you do is to see the FAQ section, which is frequently asked questions. Now that's in the first section of this course, and it's got a lot of information about how to configure emulators, primarily the Android Virtual Device. It shows you how to sort of tweak the settings to give the greatest likelihood of getting it to work in the case of you having problems. So particularly if you've got less than 8 GB of RAM, you'll probably have to check that section to get the emulators to work. In many cases, people who have followed that information have been able to get the regular Android Virtual Device to work. So I hope that's been beneficial, and I'll see you in the next video.